The Scrum Guide describes 3 roles or accountabilities: the developer, the Scrum Master, and the Product Owner. We all know who the developers are. They're the workers who build the product. And we all know the Scrum Master is the person who coaches and guides the Scrum team. But what about the Product Owner? Who should be the Product Owner on a Scrum team? Many organizations find one of the following to fill the role of Product Owner: a project manager, the head of business development, a lead business analyst, a team lead, or a senior UI designer. But do the skills these people have map properly to the skills of the Product Owner? I recently got a chance to chat with David West, the CEO of Scrum.org, and I asked him who should be the Product Owner on a Scrum team. Here's what he had to say.
So this is actually a really interesting question, and something that I see a lot in organizations that are adopting Scrum and are new to Scrum. What we see is there's an existing industrial structured organization where you've got specialists who are formed together in teams to deliver. You've got a team leader, a bunch of functional specialists, maybe a functionally specialist team. Work is then managed through a life cycle, going through these specialist teams, and then it's delivered to the end, and magic happens. It's always late, it's always over budget, it's always a bit of a disaster. Now, and Scrum approaches it very differently. You build cross-functional teams that are aligned to the outcomes, the work that's being focused on. And there's 3 roles. There's people that are actually in the team. They used to be, we used to call them, and we still do call them, I think, developers. It's not a development team anymore, but people that are developing the increment, doing the work. Then you've got 2 sets of accountabilities addition to that, which are the Scrum Master and the Product Owner. So when you take an existing organization and you compare it to that, you say, well, all right, we've got business analysts, we've got project managers, we've got maybe a team lead, maybe we've got the manager that runs the group. Who goes where? So they're looking at that thing. I discourage that. I mean, obviously it's important, you need to think about, but let's start instead with, okay, let's look at those accountabilities. So product ownership is all about basically making the decisions about the order of the items and the priority of those items in the backlog to deliver the most value. Ultimately, the accountability of the product owner is to define that product goal, to help the team define that sprint goal, to work with the team to really make sure the most valuable things are being delivered, and to be an active participant throughout the sprint, but also at the sprint review, encouraging the right stakeholders to be involved to get the feedback so that you can inspect and adapt it and move and improve and continuously deliver value to your customers. So let's look at who has those traits. Let's look at who cares passionately about the outcomes that are being delivered. Let's look at who has the network of connections for stakeholders. Let's look at who cares deeply about the value that's being delivered and has a connection with the customer and the outcomes in a more clear way. Sometimes that could be a project manager. Sometimes that could be a business analyst. Sometimes that could be a software developer on the team, a tester. Let's look for those people. Now, the trick, though, isn't just who has those passions. It's also who does the management, the organization that team lives in, trust to do it. So then you have to balance that and say, okay, well, they always trust the project manager because the project manager's been there a long time. So that might be the right person. And remember, the project manager can work with the other people in the team that have some of those other traits and make that work. So I try to balance those sort of what characteristics the accountabilities encourage with the trust that the organization needs to place in that person. Because one of the biggest problems, if you've got a product owner that isn't trusted by the management, the organization they're residing in, then they don't get that autonomy, they don't get that freedom to make the right choices. They're always second guessing. And so things like this happen where the team's like, hey, well, so should we do this or this first? And they go, don't know, let me go and talk to some people, I'll get back to you. And that's awful for the team, for the product owner, for everything. The teams slowly will lose trust in the product owner, but also more worryingly, it means they'll maybe sitting around twiddling their fingers while they wait for a response. A great Scrum team has a product owner that makes choices and makes decisions. Now, most organizations don't like that because it also means they're accountable for those decisions. But again, most organizations aren't going to fire you because of that. And the great thing about Scrum is you have these things called sprints. So it's only a small chunk of time. So what is it, a week or 2 weeks that you're wasting? You know, if it is a mistake, instead of the traditional organizations where we spend months trying to make sure that everything's perfect before we move into the next phase. So I think that the right product owner is the one that is both trusted by the organization to be empowered to make those decisions, coupled with the characteristics, the traits that really align to those accountabilities that a product owner has. And if you can get those two things in line, then the people just fall out of the organization because, oh, that person's trusted, they've got many of these traits, but other members of the team's got those traits. Let's pick that person. And sometimes, as I said, it could be a project manager, it could be a business analyst, it could be a tester, it could be somebody that's a software engineer, it could be an SME. It doesn't really matter what their traditional title was, as long as they are both trusted and have some of those traits.
The product owner is a key member of the Scrum team with responsibilities that are critical to the success of your product. Make sure you pick the right person for the job.